Chapter 3 Of Mixed Princedoms. But in new princedoms difficulties abound. And, first, if the princedom be not wholly new, but joined to the ancient dominions of the prince, so as to form with them what may be termed as mixed princedom, changes will come from a cause common to all new states, namely, that men, thinking to better the condition, are always ready to change masters, and in the expectation will take up arms against any ruler, wherein they deceive themselves and find afterwards by experience that they are worse off than before. This again results naturally and necessarily from the circumstances that the prince cannot avoid giving offense to his new subjects, either in respects of the troops he quarters on them, or if of some of them of the numberless vexations attend on a new acquisition. And in this way you may find that you have enemies in all those whom you have injured in seizing the princedom, yet cannot keep the friendship of those who helped you to gain it. So you can neither reward them as they expect, nor yet, being under obligations to them, use violent remedies against them. For however strong you may be in the respect of your armies, it is essential that in the entering of a new province you should have the goodwill of its inhabitants. Hence, it happened that Louis the 12th of France, speedily gaining possession of Milan, has as speedily lost it, and that on the occasion of its first capture, Lodovico Sforza was able with his own forces only to take it from him. For the very people who had opened the gates to the French king, when they found themselves deceived in their expectations and hopes of the future benefits, could not put up with the insolence of their new ruler. True, it is that when a state rebels and isn't against got under, it will not afterwards be lost so easily. For the prince, using the rebellion as a pretext, will not scruple to secure himself by punishing the guilty, bringing the suspected to trial, and otherwise strengthening his position in the points where it is weak. So that if to recover Milan from the French it was enough on the first occasion that a Duke Lodovico should raise alarms on the frontiers to wrest it from them a second time, the whole world had to be ranged against them, and their armies destroyed and driven out of Italy, and this for the reasons above assigned. Yet, for a second time, Milan was lost to the king. The general cause of its first loss has been shown. It remains to note that the cause of the second, and to the point of the remedies which the French king had, or which might have been used by another in like circumstances to maintain his conquest more successfully than he did. I say, then, that those states which upon their acquisitions are joined on the ancient dominions of the prince who acquires them, or are either of the same province and tongue as the people of these dominions, or they're not. When they are, there is a great ease in retaining them, especially when they have not been accustomed to live in freedom. To hold them securely, it is enough to have it rooted out the line of the reigning prince, because if no, in other respects, the old condition of things be continued, and there would be no discordance in their customs, men live peaceably with one another, as we see it has been the case in Brittany, Burgundy, Gascony, Normandy, which have so long been united to France. For although there have been some slight difference in their languages, their customs are similar, and they easily get on together. He, therefore, who acquires such a state, if he means to keep it, must see two things. First, blood of the ancient line of prince be destroyed. Second, no change be made in respect of laws or taxes. For in the ways the new acquired state speedily becomes incorporated with the hereditary. But when the states are required in a country differing in language, usages, and laws, difficulties multiply, and great good fortune as well as address is needed to overcome them. One of the best and most efficacious methods for dealing with such a state is for the prince who acquires it to go and dwell in their person, since this will tend to make his tenure more secure and lasting. This course has been followed by the Turk with regard to Greece, who he had not, in addition to all his other precautions for procuring the province, himself come to live in it could never have kept his hold of it. For when you are in the spot, disorders are to be detected in their beginnings, and remedies can be readily applied. But when you are at a distance, they are not heard of until they have gathered strength and the case is past cure. Moreover, the province in which you take your abode is not pillaged by your officers. The people are pleased to have a ready recourse to their prince, and have all the more reason, if they are well disposed, to love, to suspect, to fear him. A foreign enemy desiring to attack the state would be cautious how he did so. In short, where the prince resides in person, it will be extremely difficult to oust him. Another excellent expedient is to send colonies in one or two places, so that these may become, as it were, the keys of the province. For you must either do this, or else keep up a numerous force of men at arms and foot soldiers. A prince need not spend much on colonies. He can send them out and support them at little or no charge to himself. And the only person to whom he gives offense are those whom he deprives of their fields and houses to bestow them on the new inhabitants. Those who are thus injured form but a small part of the community, and remaining scattered and poor can never become dangerous. All others, being left unmolested, are in consequence easily quieted, and at the same time are afraid to make a false move, lest they share the fate of those who had been deprived of their possessions. In few words, these colonies cost less in soldiers, are more faithful, give less offense, while those who are offended, being, as I have said, poor and dispersed, cannot hurt. And let it be noted that men are either to be kindly treated or utterly crushed, since they can revenge lighter injuries, but not graver. Wherefore, the injury we do to a man should be of sort to leave no fear of reprisals. But if instead of colonies you send troops, the cost is vastly greater, and the whole revenues of the country are spent in guarding it, so that the gain becomes a loss, and much deeper offense is given, since in shifting the quarters of your soldiers from place to place, the whole country suffers hardships, which, as I all all are made enemies, and enemies who remaining, although vanquished in their own homes, have power to hurt. In every way, therefore, this mode of defense is a disadvantage, as that by colonizing is useful. The prince who establishes himself as a prince in a province whose laws and language differ from those of his own people ought also to make himself the head and protector of his feebler neighbors, and endeavors to weaken the stronger, and must see that by no ancient accident shall any other stranger as powerful as himself find an entrance there. For it will always happen that some such person will be called in by the province, who are discontented either through ambitions or fear, as we see of old the Romans, brought into Greece by the Aetolians, and in every other country, and they endured, invited there by its inhabitants. And the usual course of things is that so soon as a formidable stranger enters a province, all the weaker powers side with him, move thereto. By this ill will they bear towards him who has hitherto kept them in subjection, so that in respect of these lesser powers, and no trouble is needed to gain of them over, for at once, together and of their own accord, they throw in their lot with the government of the stranger. The new prince, therefore, has only to see that they do not increase too much in strength, and with his own force, aided by their goodwill, can easily subdue any who are powerful, so as to remain supreme in the province. He does not manage this matter well, will soon lose whatever he has gained, and while he retains it will find in it endless troubles and annoyances. In dealing with the countries of which they took possessions, the Romans diligently followed the methods I have described. They planted colonies, conciliated weaker powers without adding to their strengths, humbled the greats, and never suffered a formidable stranger to acquire influence. A single example will suffice to show this. In Greece, the Romans took the Achaeans and the Aetolians into their pay. The Macedonians' monarchy was humbled, Antiochus was driven out, but the services of the Achaeans and Aetolians never obtained for them any addition to their power. No persuasions on the part of Philip could induce the Romans to be his friends on the conditions of sparing him humiliation, nor could all the power of Antiochus bring them to consent to his exercising any authority without the province. And in thus acting, the Romans did as well all wise rulers should, who have to consider not only present difficulties but also future, against which they must use all diligence to provide. For these, if they be foreseen while yet remote, admit of easy remedy, but if their approach be awaited, all are already past cure, the disorder having becoming hopeless, realizing what the physicians tell us of hectic fever, that in its beginning it is easy to cure, but hard to recognize, whereas, after a time, not having been detected and treated at first, it becomes easy to recognize, but impossible to cure. And so it is with state affairs. For this distempers of a state being discovered while yet inchoate, which can only be done by a sagacious ruler, may easily be dealt with. But when, from not being observed, they are suffered to grow until they are obvious to everyone, there is no longer any remedy. The Romans, therefore, foreseeing evils while they were yet far off, are always provided against them, and never suffered them to take their course of the sake of avoiding war, since they knew that war is not to be avoided, but is only postponed to the advantage of the other side. They chose, therefore, to make war with Philip and Antiochus in Greece, and they might have to make it with them in Italy, although for a while they might have escaped both. This is they did not desire, nor did the maxim leave it to time, which the wise men of our own day have always on their lips, ever recommended itself to them. While they look to enjoy the fruits of their own valor and foresight for time, driving out things before it may bring with it evil as well as good. But let us not now go back to France and examine whether she has followed any of those methods of which I have made mention. I shall speak of Louis, and not of Charles, because for the former, having held longer possessions of Italy, his manner of acting is more plainly seen. You will find, then, that he has done direction opposite of what he should have done in order to retain a foreign state. King Louis was brought into Italy by the ambition of the Venetians, who hoped by his coming to gain themselves a half of the state of Lombardy. I will not blame this coming, nor the part taken by the king, because desiring to gain a footing in Italy, where he had no friends, but on the contrary, owing to the conduct of Charles, every door was shut against him. He was driven to accept such friendships as he could get, and his designs might easily have succeeded had he not made mistakes in other particulars of conduct. By the recovery of Lombardy, Louis at once regained the credit which Charles has lost. Genoa made submissions,